and welcome to the episode proper for the Runaways, and we start with the band's debut album, The Runaways, released in 1976. It would come out through Mercury Records and it would be produced by Kim Foley. It seems to be a theme for the back half of the season. I covered their past prior to this album in the very brief history video, so let's start with the first song of this album. Said first song is titled Cherry Bomb, which is not just a good tone setter, but it's also one of the band's most recognisable hits. And considering how iconic this album is, that's really saying something. This is an album by a band who came about when nobody else was really doing this style, made even more unique by the fact that all the band members were still really young. It's an old school hard rock style album with an underlying punk rock attitude to it, even giving off some grunge vibes at points. That's a style that's executed pretty well, with its pacing showing through noisily and keeping a steady rhythmic vibe going. Speaking of, this album is just a lot of fun to listen to, and I could argue that it's due to the production. Almost 45 years after the fact, this album still sounds amazing, bouncy, and really catchy. And yeah, obviously the band sound great too, having their timing down to a T, and Sherry Curry proves how good of a frontwoman she was and still is today. And the lyrics cover things like fun, partying, love, and, well, rock, all in a simple but sweet and fun way. Favorite song goes to Blackmail. The Runaways' self-titled debut is a classic, and it's earned its status thanks to its production, performance value, and fun vibe, and still holds up. Next is the band's second album, Queens of Noise. Released in 1977, it would come out through the same label, and it would be produced by both Kim Farley and Earl Mankey. So I actually went over what happened leading to this album's release already, but there's still a lot of things to talk about. Mostly the fact that the band's relationship with Kim Farley got worse, and the band would bring in Mankey as the main producer, while Farley only gave some minor contributions. Anyway, this album starts with the title track, and it's pretty obvious that there's a huge change in tone for this album. It noticeably has a more glam rock edge. As a matter of fact, this album's style goes to quite a lot of different places, and considering that it was only 6 months after their debut, that's quite a big leap. There's a lot more melody added to it, and it's arguably their least punk rock feeling album, but I think part of that might be the production and label. See, the band were under contract to put out a lot of albums in a really short time frame, and having it split between two producers kind of helped. I don't mind the experimentation with the sound, and it mostly works, but there are a lot of outside factors that really go against it. The often fuzzy sounding instruments back up the style well, with even more solos and a better handle on timing too, and the band play and sing as well as you would expect them to. The lyrics cover things like criticism of fame, romance and addiction, the dark tones adding to the weirdest stuff tried. My favourite song goes to Hollywood. Despite its backstage problems and production issues, Queens of Noise is still a solid follow-up, with the band selling it beautifully, and most of the experimentation does work for the better, believe it or not. Next is the band's third album, Waiting for the Night. Released in 1977, it would come out through the same label, and it would be produced by Kim Farley on his own this time. So yes, the more sharp-eared of you watching would have noticed the shorter time gap, but that's made him shorter still considering that the band released a live album in June of that year. For context, this album came out in October, so that's not a really big gap now, is it? Also, there was a lot of drama that only glossed over during Queens of Noise, and Sherry Curry would leave the band, making this the first Runaways album with Joan Jett as the main lead vocalist. Anyway, this album starts with the song Little Sister, and man, what a change this is! It feels more like a follow-up to their debut with a more punk rock edge to its style, and having the lineup changes that they did in that 9-month period, headed something that could have gone so wrong wind up sounding so good. Not to disparage Sherry's abilities, because yeah, she's also a really good singer, and also the arguments between Joan and Sherry for the last album and other personal troubles are all horrible, sure, but damn did Joan come through here. There's also the fact that this album didn't really sell super well, which is baffling because this album is pretty damn good. It's got some nice changes to its pacing as it goes along, with the production helping that too. The instrumental work is fun and bouncy, and the band sound more complete despite only having 4 members for this one. The lyrics go over things like drugs, alcoholism, and the infighting of the band, so it was a bit more personal this time, which I always like. My favourite song goes to School Days. Waiting for the Night is just irreverent, simple fun with lovely pacing, guitar work, and a sense of ease to everything. Finally, we reached the band's 4th and final album, and now The Runaways. Released in 1978, it would come out through Mercury Records in Europe, Cherry Red Records in the UK, and it was produced by John Alcock. So yeah, there was a lot of drama surrounding this one, with more members leaving and joining, and those now ex-members accusing former producer Kim Farley of being a control freak. That's actually part of the reason why it took them so long to get a new producer for this one, because they wanted someone they felt a lot safer with. The band also started getting more excessive with the rock and roll lifestyle, and considering the time period and that they were just passing by 20 at that time, I am glad none of them died due to those circumstances. Anyway, the album starts with the song Saturday Night Special, and well, I used the word safe earlier in a more positive context, so let's use it in a slightly more negative one here. The opening track is always a good indicator, in this case indicating that the album's a bit slower and easily the most mainstream sounding one. It lacks any of the punk edge of previous albums, and it's basically the second album, but without the good scraps of fat that stuck around on that one. It's their best produced, but at the same time it's also the most lifeless, with the instrumental work repeating a lot and lacking in any energy, and the lyrical cliches about love and romance just don't fit that well, and they don't really do anything for me personally. The band does a good job with the material, but there's a lot that gets dragged out over an album that, at only 35 minutes long, is not a slog to get through. My favourite song goes to Black Leather. The Runaways' final album is a dull note to go out on, but despite the label pressures and personal problems, the band still did what they could to make the most out of it, and I can't really fault anything for that. So they'll about do it. What did you guys think though? Did it make you want to jet out of your seat in joy, or did it make you just want to run away? Well, I know where I stand. The first one, mostly. Anyway, the next episode will be a 3-part season finale, where I'll be doing what is essentially a career retrospective of Joan Jett herself and a lot of the projects she's done. So that's going to be a lot of fun to do. Before I sign off, I want to say thank you to everyone who watched PBW vs AVW episode 2 last night. There were some proper great matches on that card. Well, both cards. And yeah, I don't really have a lot else to add. I'll see you most likely for probably another Catch Up Chaos episode or another Fight of the Night. I think the Fight of the Night is more likely. It's going to take a while to get the finale done for this, but I'll do it. And if I don't see you before Christmas, although I hope I do, thank you for watching. You're awesome for surviving through 2020. Bye-bye.